Had President Trump been in office from 2000 through 2024, both of your daughters would be alive. That's the elephant in the room here. That is the absolute elephant in the room. I mean, the idea that these crimes are unavoidable is one of the biggest lies that I can't really tolerate anymore. I really can't. I mean, look at Jose Medina, apprehended by the Border Patrol.
A heated immigration hearing took an emotional turn when Congressman Brad Knott challenged a witness over sanctuary policies and then made a stunning claim. Standing alongside families who lost loved ones, Knott argued these tragedies were entirely preventable and directly blamed the Biden administration's border policies. But Democrats fired back, calling the accusations political distortion. Watch this intense exchange and decide which side made the stronger case.
You said that sanctuary jurisdictions do not prevent ICE. Do you stand by that comment?
Yes, sir.
We have heard testimony in this committee of sanctuary jurisdictions that consider immigration consequences before they finalize cases, before they charge cases, before they plead cases. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Will you condemn that?
I think that both U.S. citizens and immigrants should be charged and treated.
I didn't ask that. Will you condemn considering immigration policies before charging or resolving cases?
I don't think immigration should be a consideration when we're talking about criminal law.
Asking a Biden official to talk about border policy is pretty laughable, I've got to say so.
Mr. Knott.
Sorry about that.
No. Ms. Gorman, Mr. Abraham, thank you for your testimony today. Sheriff, thank you for your service. Ms. Pierce, thank you for being here. Again, I say this often as the father of two precious girls. I can't imagine being in your chair, and I'm sorry, because again, we have not only a refusal to apologize for the policies, but we're trying to bake in the lie that these crimes were unavoidable. I mean, that's the lie that no one will talk about. Both of these crimes were avoidable. They should never have happened. And unfortunately for my colleagues on the other side, had President Trump been in office from 2000 through 2024, both of your daughters would be alive. That's the elephant in the room here. That is the absolute elephant in the room. I mean, the idea that these crimes are unavoidable is one of the biggest lies that I can't really tolerate anymore. I really can't. I mean, look at Jose Medina, apprehended by the Border Patrol on May 9th, 2023. He told immigration officials he did not have any fear of harm or death. He was marked by Border Patrol as someone who was likely to abscond. He asked to be deported to Colombia. He could not provide any point of contact inside the United States. But the Democrats behind Biden and Harris programmatically ushered him into the country, paying for his health care, his food, his clothing. And my colleagues here today on the other side will not say it was avoidable. He was arrested for theft. He did not show up to court. 2 crimes. Not a conviction. This is very important. It was not a conviction. 2 crimes. They say we don't deport anybody unless they have a conviction. Well, it's very hard to convict someone when you don't prosecute them. He then murdered a precious American child, a young lady, for doing nothing more than looking at the Northern Lights. Again, it's the biggest lie that's being told in Congress is that these crimes are unavoidable. You know, the second case, Mr. Abraham's daughter. You said that Mr. Bull was deported once before. Do you know what he was deported for?
I don't know why. I can't get that information from Illinois. But he was using
You can't
aliens.
get it from Illinois?
No,
I wonder why.
I can't get anything
Yeah.
from Illinois. But he was also using aliases. He wasn't. He was presenting himself as a Mexican national, not a Guatemalan national.
Yep.
Federal agencies knew that. State didn't bother checking. So,
Yep. Well, I can tell both of you I did work in the Department of Justice under President Obama, under President Trump, and under President Biden. And it was a programmatic effort to bring as many people into the country as they could and to keep them here, regardless of what they did. And I do have to ask you, Ms. Pierce, one question. You said that sanctuary jurisdictions do not prevent ICE or immigration enforcement. Do you stand by that comment?
Yes, sir.
We have heard testimony in this committee of sanctuary jurisdictions that consider immigration consequences before they finalize cases, before they charge cases, before they plead cases. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir.
Will you condemn that?
I think that both U.S. citizens and immigrants should be charged and treated.
I didn't ask that. Will you condemn considering immigration policies before charging or resolving cases?
I don't think immigration should be a consideration when we're talking about criminal law.
Because when they do that, that does affect immigration enforcement, correct?
We're not talking about criminal law. We're not talking about civil immigration enforcement.
I'm talking about criminal illegal immigrants, ma'am. Someone sat in that very chair and said, I will release somebody if they're an illegal immigrant and they're charged with a serious felony. I questioned them 2 weeks ago. That would affect immigration enforcement, would it not?
ICE can pick them up either
No,
way, whether or not they're charged, sir.
Asking a Biden official to talk about border policy is pretty laughable, I've got to say so. I think it's past time that we as Americans do stand up and say that American children are treasures. They are unique. Protecting them should be our foremost priority. That's impossible when you embrace open borders. That's impossible when you welcome people from all over the world, regardless of who they are, here.
Thank you.
Thank you. I yield back.
Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I feel like I shouldn't be surprised by some of the wild stories and fantasies that Republicans on this committee have embraced when they talk about sanctuary cities to really ramp up political drama, even if it's at the expense of individuals' pain and personal tragedy. But it is always jarring to hear the lies being embraced. According to our Republican colleagues, most immigrants to our country are criminals, despite the overwhelming evidence. And as even Mrs. Gorman said, we have good immigrants among us. Exactly, but that distinction seems to get lost on this committee. Evidence is immigrants are actually more law-abiding than native-born Americans overall, and we have the fact that over 70% of the immigrants detained by this administration actually have no criminal record, either here or in their home countries. According to our Republican colleagues, sanctuary policies block ICE from doing its job. According to our Republican colleagues, elected officials in cities with so-called sanctuary jurisdictions are scheming to protect immigrant criminals at the expense of their own constituents, or they're not prosecuting immigrants who commit crimes. How could any of that actually be possible? No one would agree to elect officials who deliberately make their own communities less safe, and no one would agree to live in such places. Law enforcement professionals are not in the practice of endangering their communities by allowing criminals, no matter where they came from, to run rampant. So these arguments become a complete distortion of the truth about policies that cities and states put in place to improve trust, cooperation, and ultimately safety in those communities. And here's the reality. Over and over again, congressional Republicans have used this committee to support the Trump administration as it tries to force state and local law enforcement to use their own limited resources to do the federal government's job. Even though they've sent almost $250 billion to DHS and ICE to support this administration's chaotic, out of control, mass deportation agenda that both doesn't go after the worst of the worst and has actively harmed, endangered, and even killed innocent people, including American citizens. And in doing so, our colleagues have supported the defunding of law enforcement by blocking resources for local police and diverting resources at the federal level for fighting child trafficking, terrorism, drug trafficking, corporate overreach, fraud, and more. So, Ms. Pierce, we've heard a lot of rhetoric about so-called sanctuary jurisdictions, but I think it's pretty well established now that there isn't even a single definition for that term. Can you describe for us what sanctuary policies actually do, what their purpose is, where they have been adopted, and what effect do they have?
Thank you. So jurisdictions adopt sanctuary policies, or policies in which they limit the amount that they cooperate with civil immigration enforcement in order to protect their own resources, to protect their criminal and civil liability, in order to protect their communities and the trust that they have established with their local communities. Those policies limit how much they lend their resources to ICE to do civil immigration enforcement.
So I'm just trying to make plain or understandable how sanctuary policies protect local resources. So how does that work? How does going the extra yard, well, first of all, are there any jurisdictions in the country that you're aware of that actually violate federal law with respect to cooperating with ICE, where it's required by law?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, not that I'm aware of either. But there's this middle ground where ICE would like local jurisdictions to take extra steps to detain people longer on the local dime, or to take other actions that actually cost our city and states money. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So an ICE detainer, for example, requesting that a local jurisdiction hold someone beyond the time that they would be in criminal custody, that takes up jail space as well as personnel time, and then it also subjects that local jurisdiction to legal liability, for which they can be charged hundreds of millions of dollars in liabilities or in civil settlements.
This hearing underscored why immigration remains one of the most contentious issues in Washington. Congressman Brad Knott centered his argument on accountability, contending that when local jurisdictions limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities, opportunities to remove individuals who later commit serious crimes can be missed. He also highlighted testimony from victims' families, arguing that stronger enforcement could help prevent similar tragedies. While Democrats defended sanctuary policies as a way to preserve local resources and community trust, Knott maintained that protecting American families should take precedence and questioned whether policies that limit cooperation with ICE ultimately serve the public interest. Whether you agree with his conclusions or not, Knott's questioning kept the focus on public safety, immigration enforcement, and the responsibility of government to protect its citizens. What do you think? Did Congressman Brad Knott make the stronger case in this hearing? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please like this video, subscribe to America Brief, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our coverage of the biggest congressional hearings and political debates shaping America.